know what I miss? When fandoms were allowed to be dark and fucked up. So, something that I've realized recently, or not even recently, I've kind of picked up on it like a year ago, is that you can't really, I wouldn't say enjoy, but have an interest in darker themes with shows or just like any media or any character as well in current fandom. And it is really frustrating because it's not that I enjoy dark themes, right? But it is interesting to explore them, whether it is abuse, drug addiction, political topics, stuff like that, right? Anything that can be messy and really complicated, right? But I'm realizing that modern, current day fandom can't handle it. They cannot handle it. They cannot handle nuance. They cannot handle anything grey or complex. They have to have it either specifically just straight up bad or straight up good. They can't have an in between. They can't handle it because they lose their shit. Suddenly it's romanticizing or badly portraying something, or it's fetish content. Even sometimes is a claim that gets thrown around, and I'm tired of it. As someone who enjoys grey characters and, morally, I wouldn't say ambiguous, but I guess so. Morally ambiguous or just negative themes, it frustrates me because it's just like, why? Why does it bother you so much? Is it because it makes you uncomfortable? Is it because you don't understand it? Or what? I don't understand. Or do you just want to complain about something? Because that's sometimes what it feels like. So basically, I'm just going to be ranting today. I've had a rough day and I want to rant about something, and this has been on my mind for a while. So if that's just something that you want to hear, stick around. Otherwise, that's fine. You can go. It's okay. I'm only doing this for fun. But yeah, I've noticed it for a while that fandom cannot handle grey, just grey themes is what I'll call them. And I think that's really concerning, honestly, because it just shows, to me, that tells me that people really are losing their ability to digest media and analyze it. And I mean, we've seen this downfall for the past couple of years. People cannot handle complex discussions anymore, and it's really impacting, I think, writers and artists the most in fandom spaces, because that means that, when we want to make something a bit more complicated, we are much more likely to get all sorts of shit thrown at us, all sorts of names, just because the reader doesn't understand it. And an example I can actually think of this, although this is more of an older example, was the whole Dolly Guts situation, many, many years ago. I think back in 2016, but that went on for ever, I think, where they were being called, so many different things, but the biggest one was an abuse romanticizer, which is crazy, right? All because their art had, I guess, a more cutesy art style when portraying these themes within the work. And I'm seeing stuff like that still happening but way more. And I don't really know how to word a lot of this, I'm not gonna lie, so if it doesn't make 100% sense, I do apologize. But I'm seeing this with a lot of some of like the newer fandoms, but it is entering the older fandoms too. And it's like when people are analyzing a character, they cannot grasp the nuance. Hold on. I'm gonna see if I can find the example that is in my brain. Actually, that's a good one. So, Steven Universe, right? Pink Diamond. Now, this is something that, pardon me, it's a bit controversial, but she's a great character. I would argue she's a great character. You know, Pink Diamond and Rose Quartz, you know, they are technically the same person. Different identities, though. And people don't seem to understand that Pink Diamond did change as a person. Was she good? A part of her was, but a lot of her wasn't, right? Even as Rose Quartz, she was still lying to her friends, you know? So, that's an example, and people will argue over it and try and say that, no, she's solely bad because she was a diamond. And it's like, okay, but then, if you're going to argue that, you know, are you saying that the rebellion was bad? Are you saying that, you know, her encouraging Ruby and Sapphire to be Garnet was bad? Would you say, you know, you know what I mean? You get what I'm trying to say, I think. I hope. Ooh, I hope. It's just, I don't know. And I think the reason why this frustrates me so much and really gets to me is because, you know, I like to write complex characters. I don't like to write solely good characters, or solely bad characters, but I like to write realistic characters, is basically what I'm trying to say, right? Because humans, we're complex. No one's perfect. No one can be perfect. There's no such thing as perfect. So, you know, I think it's important that we continue to write characters that aren't perfect and that are complex like that. Because, I mean, it's bad enough that people already view celebrities as this freaking, as perfect, sinless beings, although that idea is going away. Don't worry, I do know. But I mean, as an example, that's what celebrities predominantly are looked at like. And it's leaking, into people seeing actual people as, you know, purely black or white. Like, you can only be good and you can only be bad, and if you do one bad thing, then you're obviously only bad and I cannot talk to you or associate with you because you're such an evil person. When that's not how that works, you know? And I think we need to remind people through art and stories that, you know, people are complicated. Life is complicated in a way that sometimes isn't explainable. You know? Which is why I think a lot of people did like BoJack Horseman, for example. That show, I haven't watched it personally, but I know a lot of people who have, you know, portrays an extremely complex character, you know? And I think that's, interesting. And, that's also why I liked, what's it called? What was that show? Trying to think of the name of it. Give me 1 second, it's coming to me. I can... Oh, it was a recent show I watched. Why isn't it? Fallout. Why was that so hard for me to remember? The Fallout TV show, for example, right? And I'm using the TV show because that's, the most recent media that is probably fresher in people's minds at the moment. With, Cooper Howard. Now, he is, I would say, a pretty great character. Because, you know, as Cooper Howard, he seem like, he did a lot of, mostly good things, I would say. Um, outside of, like, his, military history, because war crimes every day. Um, although we don't know the full extent of what happened there, but when he becomes the ghoul, right? You know, like how Pink Diamond becomes Rose Quartz, except it's different because unlike Pink Diamond becoming Rose Quartz, Cooper actually becomes a worse person as the ghoul. He's doing bounty hunter work. He's killing people. He's, selling people so he can get his little vials. Like, he doesn't care about anyone but himself when he's the ghoul. But people, will see him a bit more sympathetic, which is fine. The show does, allow you to have those feelings because his whole family situation with them missing and everything. I'm pretty sure they're dead, but I guess we'll find out. But but I don't really see anyone calling him purely bad for what he does. But then you compare that to Rose Quartz and Pink Diamond, and she's seen as purely bad. And then it's the same with although Hank, you can argue, is definitely a bad person, but he's also grey because yes, everything he did was bad, right? Mind controlling those people and stuff, and also killing his wife, which is like, come on, bro, why would you fucking do that? But you can't deny that he doesn't love his kids. Like, he genuinely loves his kids. And, like, you can see that in how he talks and how he behaves. He's just not a good guy. And I like that. I like his character for that. That's why I like the Ghoul and why I like Pink Diamond and Rose Quartz, right? They are complicated people with messy stories, and I love it. But modern fandom sees a lot of characters like that, like new characters coming out from other media and stuff like that, and they have a problem with it. And all I'm thinking is, oh my god, please don't watch Avatar: The Last Airbender, because I do not want to hear what you have to say about Azula as a character. Like, please, I don't want to know what you have to say. Because it cannot be good if you can't even understand or want to analyze a character deeply enough to understand their motives. I guess what I'm mostly frustrated about with this sort of thing is people only want to look at surface level of things now. They don't want to have the fun of picking apart every little detail and every little trait of a character or story, which is like the best part of being a viewer of something, is not just watching it and enjoying the visuals and the actors and the voice work and things like that, or the animation, but sitting down afterwards and thinking on it, and really thinking on it, and connecting with it on a very deep level. That is one of my favorite things about it, which is why I'm so frustrated that so many people didn't like the Backrooms movie, when I loved it. I loved the symbolism, I loved a lot of the visuals, I loved the themes of self-destruction, particularly with Clark's character. I just love it. I think it was beautiful. But people, they just say, oh, it's not that deep, and then move on, and completely rob themselves of the experience, a very important part of the experience, because they don't want to use their fucking brains. They have become so numb and dumb. Yeah, I'm going to use the word dumb. I don't care if it's mean. But they've become so numb and dumb that they can't enjoy media. They just can't. And all I have to say with that stuff, really, at the end of the day, is then stop engaging with it. Don't give an opinion on it, because you're not willing to do basic analysis. You just want it to be spoon-fed to you, but then you'll complain that, oh, it's telling us everything. Like, what the fuck do you want? What do you want then? You want complicated characters, right? But then when it's given to you, you come up with all sorts of ways to demonize the creators and co-writers and artists and anyone who was a part of the media because you couldn't understand the character that you asked for. Which is why, like, I'm kind of scared to write stories, because I don't know how people are gonna take them. Like, I have a story that I've been sort of working on and off of for, like, the past, like, I'd say, like, late December, maybe early November last year. And there's a character I have in it, and she's a very, very complicated character, a very messy character. Like, she has a lot of mental health problems. She suffered a lot, but she's still a bad person, right? And it's not because of those things. Like, that, like, her experiences do shape her, but, you know, her actions are what make her bad, right? And I feel like if I were to put that story out, to say I finish it and I put it out there, I feel like people would say that I'm demonizing people with mental health, that I'm poorly portraying abuse situations, that I'm, you know, just a bad, like, I don't know. That's all that comes to my head, because, like, I see that everywhere. That's everything, like, I see, and it just really kills your motivation to want to make something. And if I'm feeling that way, I imagine that other writers and artists feel that way. And sure, like, there is a part of me that I'm just like, oh, I'll just, like, ignore what everyone says, like, fuck them, like, you know, it's my story, and if they don't understand it, that's on them. But it's still, like, if that's, like, what you receive, like, that's, like, the majority viewpoint that you keep seeing with popular media, man, small media will not make it. They will be utterly destroyed. They don't even get a chance. I don't know. I'm mostly just rambling about just random stuff. It's just frustrating. I'm so tired of seeing the way things are going with, like, art, you know, and that's not even talking about the AI side of things, which is just, I'm so sick of it. I really am. But yeah, I don't know. This is just a ramble. If you feel the same way, you know, let me know, I guess, if you've come across this video. Share an opinion. If you disagree with me, go for it. I don't mind. I'm always happy to have a little discussion, you know. But yeah, just stay safe and try to stay positive. I'm sure as hell trying. But yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna make another video after this, but yeah. Anyways, bye. Oh, also, the speed paint hasn't finished and I can't get it to go any faster, so if you want to stick around and keep watching that, go for it. Otherwise, bye!